Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, let's just get right into it. You definitely know someone who is making way more money than you, and you have absolutely zero idea how they're doing it, right? It's like maybe it's a guy from your hometown who never seemed super ambitious, or that neighbor who drives a totally ordinary truck, works completely normal hours, and yet just paid cash for something you are still aggressively saving up for. You probably just assumed, well, it's got to be luck, right? Or some family connection, or some secret angle you just never get access to. But actually, here's what's really happening. Some of the most phenomenally profitable businesses in America are literally hiding in plain sight. So, why is that seemingly unambitious neighbor out earning you? Well, I promise you, it is not because you aren't smart enough to spot the opportunities they found. It's actually because your brain has this invisible filter that's been blocking them out your entire life. Think about it. These businesses, they don't look impressive. Nobody is putting them on the cover of Forbes or some glossy business magazine. And because they completely lack that flash, your brain simply decided, without even asking you, by the way, that they really weren't worth your attention. Which brings us to part one, the wealth filter, invisible barriers. Now, the exact mechanism that is secretly costing people millions of dollars is what the source material brilliantly calls being psychologically repellent. Every single business we're going to talk about today shares this one incredibly specific trait, and it creates a massive barrier to entry. But here's the kicker. It's not a financial barrier. It's an emotional one. It doesn't mean the work is technically demanding or physically impossible. It just means it involves doing something that doesn't make you feel smart. I mean, you don't exactly brag to your friends at a dinner party that you're building a porta-potty empire or a parking lot striping route, right? But that exact discomfort, that collective social embarrassment, that is an open door. It leaves these industries that generate literally billions of dollars a year with barely anyone fighting for the contracts. Let's move on to part two, everyday infrastructure, recurring revenue. So these are businesses where you aren't trying to sell some shiny new product. Instead, you're selling recurring access to basic infrastructure that people simply cannot replicate at home. Look, if you want to impress people, you go open a fancy restaurant. But get this, nearly 60% of restaurants fail in year one alone. 60%! Now, on the flip side, let's look at the incredibly humble laundromat. The failure rate there? It's under 5%. An average laundromat generates somewhere between $300,000 and $1 million in annual revenue, and the profit margins are sitting pretty between 20 and 35%. Do the math on that. That is potentially 350 grand in net profit from just a single location. And with modern card readers, they take just hours a week to manage. Honestly, this is exactly why the people who own them quietly keep their mouths shut. Beyond laundromats, we've got these incredible, totally invisible cash cows. Think vending machines, ATMs, and RV or boat storage. Now, a single vending machine making $400 a month? Okay, that's not exactly life-changing. But scale that up to a route of 20 smart machines in hospital corridors or manufacturing break rooms, and boom, you are looking at 10 grand a month. It's the exact same deal with ATMs. Just 10 machines processing 200 transactions at a $3 surcharge nets you $6,000 monthly. Or take RV and boat storage. Millions of Americans live in neighborhoods with strict HOA rules that forbid them from parking their boats at home. So, if you secure a modest parcel of land, drop down some gravel, throw up a fence and a coated gate, you can generate 80 to 200 grand a year from what is functionally just a gated gravel lot. Crazy, right? And this brings us to a really fascinating evolution of the storage model. Your standard self-storage brings in about $8 to $15 per square foot annually. Not bad. But if you target a very specific niche, say specialty self-storage like climate-controlled wine storage for serious collectors, or incredibly secure legal document storage for law firms, you can command dramatically higher margins. I'm talking $200 to $500 per square foot annually. It's a total game changer. You're creating a super high margin business from a remarkably modest physical footprint, and you're getting customers who almost never leave. All right, part three, the discomfort premium, profiting from dirt. We're talking about highly lucrative businesses that people actively avoid simply because they involve dirt, trash, or just plain social awkwardness. Let's run through a few. A two-truck dumpster rental operation dropping off 3 to 5 dumpsters a day, that generates $10,000 to $20,000 a month. Porta potties? Look, with just 20 units on steady monthly construction contracts, you're easily pulling in 2 to 10 grand in recurring revenue. Document shredding is literally required by federal law, yielding 8 to 15 grand a month for a really small operation. And then there's headstone cleaning. Granite and marble develop biological growth over time. A single cemetery contract to soft wash headstones can be worth anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000. If you search your city right now, most markets have maybe 0 to 2 providers. The market is completely wide open. Why? Because people just do not want to work in cemeteries. And there's a brilliant irony here, really. The guy driving the luxury sports car is so often funding it entirely by moving porta potties. The absolute crucial point to understand here is that every single business we just mentioned solves a problem the customer desperately doesn't want to think about. And when people don't want to think about a problem, they do not comparison shop. They aren't waiting around for a viral marketing campaign or a fun seasonal sale. They just want the problem handled, and they will gladly pay who forever shows up reliably. That's the secret. Predictability and reliability trump a viral moment every single time. Moving right along to part 4, high-yield services, low startup costs. Now, I know what some of you are probably thinking. Yeah, but a dump truck costs like 40 to 100 grand. And you know what? That's totally fair. So let's look at some super accessible services that require under $2,000 to start, but can replace a 6-figure salary almost immediately. Take being a mobile notary and loan signing agent. You can make $300 to $1,200 in a single day, and you can be up and running in just 60 days. How about remote medical billing? You basically recover lost revenue for small clinics and keep 5 to 10% of it. People are easily making 80 to 150 grand a year doing this from home. Irrigation services can generate $30 to $60,000 just during the spring and fall activation windows. And mobile window and screen repair? A solo operator can clear $120 to $250,000 a year just repairing failing seals in our nation's aging homes. Okay, I want you to take a moment and just absorb this next number. 800 million. That is the approximate number of parking spaces in the United States. That's right, 800 million. And every single one of them needs to be repainted every 2 to 3 years because of fading insurance rules or local codes. Big national companies, they don't even bother standardizing this stuff. It's almost entirely handled by tiny local operators. Once you buy a line striper and some paint for a few $1,000s, your overhead is practically zero. Experienced local operators clear $200,000 to $400,000 a year with just themselves and maybe one helper. And right next to that insane number is this one, $14 billion. That's the value of the U.S. auto detailing industry. But I'm talking specifically about premium mobile car detailing. Think about it. You completely eliminate real estate costs by going directly to the customer. If you target busy professionals who want their cars detailed on a set monthly schedule, a mobile detailer with just 40 recurring monthly clients generates $6,000 to $16,000 a month in deeply predictable income, and the whole shebang is a startup cost of around $2,000 to $5,000. No way, right? But it's true. Which leads us to part 5, the ultimate secret, missing the obvious. This brings us to the ultimate secret tying all these forgotten industries together. Honestly, it requires a major psychological mindset shift. Here it is. You must be willing to look boring for a year in exchange for looking wealthy for a decade. Every single person who is currently succeeding in these businesses looked at the exact same economy that you and I are looking at today. The only difference? They stopped caring about impressing people at dinner parties. They completely stopped waiting for an opportunity that sounded glamorous, and instead, they just walked right through the open doors that everyone else was way too proud to even notice. And this quote brilliantly encapsulates the whole philosophy. It's directly from our source material. It's a decision about what kind of return you want on your attention. Wow, let that sink in. The people making absolute fortunes in vending machines, dumpster rentals, and parking lot striping, they aren't necessarily smarter or more connected than you. They just made a really conscious decision to focus their attention where the actual money was, rather than where the hype was. So I'll leave you with this final, somewhat provocative question. Look at the businesses we just explored together. The barriers to entry, they aren't financial. They are purely psychological. So which boring business are you actually willing to start today? Take a really hard look at where your attention is going and decide if it's time to stop ignoring the massive wealth hiding right in front of you. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope it completely changes the way you look at the ordinary world around you.